Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Psych Talk, the podcast where we break down mental health topics, human behavior, and the psychology behind why we think, feel, and act the way we do. Today's episode, we will dive into The Undiscovered Self by Carl Jung, which is extremely relevant today as it was back then during the Cold War. And the reason why, it's because this book is made for every individual that wants to look inward and reclaim their autonomy in a world that constantly tries to homogenize thought and behavior. So let's get into it. What is the undiscovered self? And why does Jung believe that the undiscovered self holds the key to saving humanity? So Jung opens the book by discussing the growing alienation of the individual in modern society. So with the rise of science, rationalism, organized religion, and authoritarian regimes, we have been shifting away from personal experience and individual meaning. And so Jung argues that when people lose touch with their inner selves, they become vulnerable to mass movements, such as political ideologies, religious dogmas, or social conformity. He warns that the more we suppress our individuality, the more we're susceptible to being swept up by collective thinking. And this collective identity, while comforting, it is also very dangerous because it erases personal responsibility and introspection. He's asking us to see the mass problems, such as war, tyranny, and oppression, start at the individual level. And these mass problems reflect the unresolved unconscious contents of our own psyches projected onto the world. So Jung doesn't shy away from criticizing institutions. He actually questions the blind faith people place in science, especially the kind that reduces humans to mere statistics or biological mechanisms. And while science has given us incredible tools, it cannot grasp the full complexity of human consciousness and spirituality. On the flip side, he critiques organized religions as well for failing to address the spiritual needs of modern individuals. And so instead of offering personal symbolic experiences, religion often becomes rigid and authoritarian. So Jung proposes that true religion is a psychological experience, a living, symbolic engagement with the unconscious. He sees the psyche as the core of religious experience and says that understanding one's own psyche is the most honest spiritual path. In other words, we can't outsource our soul work to institutions, and the inner journey is ours alone. Another topic that Jung discusses in this book is the concept of evil. So he warns that many people are naive when it comes to evil. They externalize it, place it on others, or others' nations, or other political parties. But Jung says that the evil is not out there, it is in us. And unless we face our inner darkness, what he calls the shadow, we will continue to project it outward and create conflict. And this is where Jungian psychology becomes both deeply spiritual and deeply ethical. And he insists on radical self-honesty as well. So by confronting the shadow and integrating it consciously, we not only grow as individuals, but we become less likely to demonize others or be manipulated by fear-based ideologies. So Jung was deeply concerned about the political climate of his time. And after witnessing the rise of fascism, communism, and the devastating effects of both world wars, he wrote The Undiscovered Self as a psychological warning, which can really apply to be honest, right now. And so he explains how mass movements gain power when individuals lose their sense of self. And totalitarian regimes don't just rely on force, but they rely on psychological manipulation. They offer belonging, identity, and meaning to people who have lost touch with themselves. But the price is very high. You give up your own individuality in exchange for the illusion of safety. And so Jung believes that the antidote to totalitarianism is inner freedom. And that begins with self-knowledge. So, how do we reclaim our inner autonomy? For Jung, the answer lies in individuation, so the process of becoming a fully realized self. And this does not mean being self centered or egoistical, it means developing a conscious relationship with all parts of the psyche: the ego, the shadow, the anima, animus, and the self. Individuation is a psychological spiritual journey that requires introspection, honesty, and often pain. But it's also the path to meaning, freedom, and inner stability. And the more individuals undertake this journey, the more stable and compassionate society becomes. It's basically a bottom up approach to healing the world. And so, The Undiscovered Self is more than just a book, it's a mirror. And Jung holds it up to modern humanity and asks, are you really living your life? Or are you letting society, ideology, or fear define you? In a world filled with noise, distraction, and division, Jung invites us back to the quiet, difficult, but ultimately liberating work of self discovery. And he reminds us the fate of the world doesn't rest in systems, it rests in the soul of each person. And so, again, the more we lose touch with our inner self, the more likely we are to conform with mass movements or be part of some sort of ideologies. And the more likely we are to fall for the media and become brainwashed. And the antidote to that is to actually recognize the evil that you have inside you, because every person has darkness, they just don't want to face it. And just think about what this mass movement's goal is and why are they trying to capture everybody and why do they want everybody to conform. And yeah, this is the end of the episode. Thank you for tuning in. And if this episode resonated with you, consider sharing it with someone who might need to hear it. And remember, the most radical act in a conformist world is to truly know yourself. And thank you for listening.